Hi, I'm Lyndsey, and this is a kingdom story.
Hi, I'm Ben, and Ward's story is a kingdom story.
In January of 2012, we found out that we were pregnant. Super excited. It was amazing.
Call us old fashioned, but we didn't want to find out if we were having a boy or a girl. The name we had picked out for a boy was Ward Miles.
I had something called a subchorionic hematoma, and there were many times we thought that we lost the baby. I remember vividly one day being at the grocery store of all places. I just started hemorrhaging. I called my husband. I said, there's no way. There's no way I'm still pregnant.
I was at work, so I took off from work to head to the doctor's office. Here I am, driving down the highway, assuming the worst. And it was in this moment where I was letting myself feel that fear that I passed a semi truck that I'd never seen before. And the truck said, "Ship the Ward way." What was the chance that on the little stretch of highway between my workplace and the doctor's office that I would come up next to this semi truck? When I saw it, I had a peace, and I just felt that God was looking over us and that He was watching us, and that indeed we were going to have a boy and that we would name him Ward Miles.
Once he shared that with me, it meant even more once we saw that the baby was still there was a heartbeat, and that everything was okay. On the day of Ward's birth, I went to work just like I did every other day. As the morning progressed, what I thought were cramps started getting stronger and closer together. I actually ended up calling my doctor, and she said, come on in, we'll take a look and make sure everything's okay, because I was only a little over 25 weeks along in my pregnancy. My doctor comes in and she checks me and she says, "Lyndsey, you're in labor." And I was so confused. It's not time. It's way too early. I called my husband and he met me there, and it was a whirlwind. I mean, there were so many doctors, so many nurses, so many people in that room with us.
The nurses are trying to comfort us and comfort Lyndsey and have her settle down, but I could see on the one nurse's face every time Lyndsey had a contraction that she knew what was coming.
And they told us before he came that he was so young that we shouldn't expect to hear any cry because his lungs weren't developed enough. So we had prepared ourselves for that.
There are people running all over the place. They're just scattered everywhere, probably 12 different people doing 12 different things. As I was rolling from the corner up to the bedside, I looked over and Lyndsey's water had broken at this point. And as I looked over, I could see the doctor pulling the baby out. And I came up and huddled in next to Lyndsey, and we were just sitting there waiting. Didn't hear the baby cry. We could see all the commotion around the bed where they were working on him, and we didn't know what to think. In that moment, we had zero control. There was nothing we could do. So here we are, just waiting to find out, first off, is the baby alive? Is the baby okay?
Then I heard him cry. It was the most beautiful sound.
About 10 minutes into this, we realized we still didn't even know if we had a boy or a girl. One of the nurses came over to us and told us, "You have a boy. What would you like to name him?" We said, "His name's going to be Ward Miles."
I had this total peace come over me, and I just knew God said he's gonna be okay. I'm gonna take care of him. At the time of Ward's birth, being born at 25 weeks was pushing the lines of viability, and they actually gave us a 25% chance that he would make it. When Ward was just a few days old, he had to be transferred to Children's Hospital. At this point, he's a handful of days old, and we still had not been able to really touch him, let alone hold him. And I remember walking back up to his room, and his nurse was like, "Well, how do you like to hold him?" And I looked at her, I said, I've never held him. And she said, "Well, we're changing that right now." That was the best moment of my life. Getting to hold that baby for the first time. There are no words for that. With premature babies, around 10 days of life, they would do brain ultrasounds to check for any bleeding within their brains. And July 25th, 2012 was the worst day of my life. I remember so clearly his doctor said, "Lyndsey, we have some good news and we have some bad news." He has a grade 2 on the right with hydrocephalus and a grade 4 on the left. And my heart just broke. I fell down into the rocking chair behind me and I just gasped like somebody had knocked the wind out of me. She said, "Most babies who have this type of brain bleed, they have an 80% chance of being disabled. More than likely, he will have cerebral palsy." I called Ben, and all I could do was cry.
As soon as I picked up the phone and heard her voice, I knew that something was wrong and my heart just dropped.
I finally choked out the words, and it was just so heartbreaking.
The entire trip down to the hospital, I was just sobbing and crying out to God, just in fear, completely in fear. But as I walked up to the bed, I looked down in the little isolette and I saw him there, and he was as peaceful as could be.
We cried a lot of tears. We told our families what was going on and that we needed a lot of prayer and that we needed a miracle and that we expected a miracle because God is good and he wasn't going to leave word like that. That night at his 9 o'clock care, it was a really special moment for us. Up to this point, he hadn't really opened his eyes much, and he definitely didn't look at us. But that night, once they took his CPAP mask off and he was just free from all of that, and we're just talking to him and he's holding our hands, he turns his head and he just looks at us. And it wasn't just for like a brief second, it was a gaze. Like he just held eye contact with us for a while.
He just looked right into us. And Lyndsey and I looked at each other like, "Are you seeing this? Are you catching this here?" And we were both thinking the same thing. It was his little way letting us know, "Hey, hang on. I'm going to be okay."
I feel that this is a kingdom story on multiple levels. Not only has God been with us through the entire journey and beyond, giving us peace and confirmation, but we've seen the miraculous through Ward. Statistically speaking, he shouldn't be here, and if he was, he should be handicapped, but he's not. He's here, he's healthy, he's happy, he's thriving, he's intelligent. He's how God made him, and this was God's story for him, and we just want to share that.
There are so many things where we have zero control over the situation. And the best way to react in these situations is to take your hands off the wheel, so to speak, and to give God that control and to tell him that you trust in him. And it's when you trust in him and when you give up all the things you have no control over anyways, when you're finally able to bring yourself to the point where you can give him those things, he will fill you with a peace that makes no sense. You can't describe it. You don't know why you have peace in that circumstance, but it's there and it's undeniable. And the fact of the matter is, the only reason we had that peace is because we have a faith in Jesus.